The docking clamps hissed as the UESN Marauder settled into its berth. The massive human freighter dwarfed by the spiked architecture of Orbital Customs Hub Sigma-9. Captain Elias Vance adjusted his jacket, the familiar weight of his sidearm absent, confiscated at the first checkpoint. The Zapirian inspectors hadn't even bothered to hide their disdain when they'd taken it. Primitive projectile weapons, one had sneered, as if their plasma casters made them civilized. Vance stepped onto the inspection platform, the artificial gravity slightly heavier than Earth standard. His boots clanged against the grated floor, the sound drawing the attention of a group of dock workers. A Vorac with bioluminescent stripes curling around her torso Vexis, according to her badge, watched him with slit, pupilled eyes. She didn't bother to hide her smirk as a drone scanned his cargo manifest. Agricultural samples, she read aloud, her voice dripping with amusement. How quaint. Vance kept his face neutral. Standard terraforming supplements fully documented. A shadow fell over him before he could say more. Inspector Krelix loomed, his chitinous plating glistening under the hub's harsh lights. The Zapirian towered over Vance by at least a foot, his forearms folded across his chest. One clawed hand tapped a datapad impatiently. Human cargo, Krelix rumbled, mandibles clicking, always problematic. Vance forced a smile. We followed every regulation. Krelix didn't answer. He strode past Vance toward the cargo bay, his spiked tail flicking in irritation. The dock workers fell silent as the inspection team descended on the Marauder's holds, their scanners humming. Vance followed, his gut tightening as they zeroed in on one particular crate, marked with red restricted stamps. Krelix paused, his antennae twitching. Open it, Vance exhaled. That's sensitive material. It's sealed for a reason. The Zapirian's compound eyes gleamed. Galactic trade law permits full inspection of all biological imports. His voice dropped, low enough that only Vance could hear. Unless you're hiding something, soft skin. The dock workers snickered. Vance clenched his jaw but nodded to his crew. The crate hissed as its locks disengaged, revealing rows of innocuous-looking chutes nestled in nutrient gel. Krelix leaned in, then recoiled. What is this? Bamboo, Vance said. Earth, native used for soil stabilization. The Zapirian's mandibles spread in what might have been a grin. He straightened, turning to Vexis. Scan it. The Vorac officer waved a handheld device over the chutes. Almost immediately, its display flashed crimson. She hissed. Organic growth rate off the charts. Unstable cellulose structure. She looked up, her stripes pulsing with alarm. This is a biohazard. Krelix didn't hesitate. He grabbed the crate, his claws digging into the metal. Confiscated. Vance stepped forward. Wait, you don't understand what's in there. The Zapirian didn't even glance at him. Violation of Section Fabi, unstable flora prohibited in Federation space. He motioned to his team. Impound the ship. Levy the standard fine. Vance's crew protested, but the customs drones were already moving, their tractor beams locking onto the Marauder's hull. Vexis smirked as she tapped out the penalty on her wrist display. Schuldwehr stuck to synthetic exports. Human. A dock worker, a hulking Arcturian covered in scarred hide, spat on the deck near Vance's boots. Typical, always trying to sneak filth into civilized space. Vance ignored him, his eyes locked on Krelix as the Zapirian carried the crate toward the high-security vault. Inspector, he called, his voice low. You're making a mistake. Krelix paused, his tail flicking dismissively. Your warnings are noted, Captain, and irrelevant. The vault door sealed behind him with a final, echoing clang. Vance exhaled, rubbing his temples. His first officer, a wiry Martian named Ruiz, sidled up beside him. They're not gonna listen, are they? Vance watched the customs officers laugh as they processed the impound forms. No, he murmured, but they will. The customs bay buzzed with activity as aliens of a dozen species moved through the orderly chaos of the inspection zone. Captain Elias Vance stood with his arms crossed, watching as dock workers in environmental suits hauled away crate after crate from the UESN Marauder. The red restricted stamps gleamed under the harsh overhead lights, each one a fresh insult. Vexis slithered up beside him, her bioluminescent stripes pulsing with amusement. The Vorac customs officer tapped a clawed finger against her datapad, the holographic display flickering with violation codes. Your manifest claimed these were agricultural samples, she said, her voice dripping with mockery. But Galactic Trade Law Section FADE clearly prohibits unsterilized organic matter from class death worlds. Vance clenched his jaw. They're just plants, seeds, nothing dangerous. A group of dock workers nearby burst into laughter, their various appendages gesturing toward the confiscated crates. One of them, a hulking Graythian with tusks protruding from his lower jaw, snorted. Typical humans, always trying to sneak filth into civilized space. Vance turned slowly, locking eyes with the Graythian. You ever seen a human plant up close? The dock worker smirked. Why would I? You're dirt. Crawlers aren't exactly impressive. Vexis flicked her tail, cutting off the exchange. Enough, Captain Vance. Your ship is impounded pending full decontamination. You'll also be fined Fei galactic credits for attempted smuggling. Vance didn't flinch. You're making a mistake. Vex's stripes flared brighter, a sign of irritation among her kind. The only mistake was yours. Human thinking you could bypass regulations. A holographic notice flickered to life above the bay, its glowing text declaring, human biological materials prohibited. The announcement drew more stares, more whispers. A group of Zapirian inspectors nearby chittered amongst themselves, their mandibles clicking in amusement. Vance exhaled sharply. Fine, but when this blows up in your face, and it will, don't say I didn't warn you. Vexis rolled her multi-lensed eyes. Oh please, what's the worst that could happen? Your plants start crying. The dock workers erupted into fresh laughter. The Graythian slapped his thigh, his tusks vibrating with mirth. Maybe they'll wilt from embarrassment. Vance didn't rise to the bait. He just watched as the last of his crates were loaded onto a hover pallet, the one marked agricultural samples, handle with care vanishing into the depths of the customs vault. A smaller alien, a timid-looking Yillith with feathery antennae, hesitated near the exit. Captain, it whispered. Is it really just plants? Vance gave the Yillith a long look. Depends on your definition of just. Vexis snapped her fingers, and two armored guards stepped forward. Escort the human to holding. Has done here. As the guards led him away, Vance cast one last glance at the disappearing crates. The dock workers were still laughing, still joking about human incompetence. None of them noticed the faint, rhythmic thump coming from inside the sealed container. None of them, except the Yillith. Its antennae twitched, and for the first time something like fear flickered in its compound eyes. Vance smirked as the bay doors hissed shut behind him. They'll learn. The security doors hissed shut behind Vance with finality. The vault stretched before him, a cavernous space lined with confiscated goods from 100 species. His crate sat in the center, still humming faintly, its red restricted stamp glowing under the harsh lights. Krelix tapped his datapad with a claw. Human contraband goes to high security storage, standard procedure. Vance flexed his wrists against the magnetic cuffs. You don't want to put that in storage. Drawk, the Arcturian security chief, loomed over them both. His forearms crossed over his armored chest. You don't give orders here. Soft skin. Vance didn't flinch. I'm giving you a warning. That crate's containment seals are time-locked once they degrade. Krelix snorted, mandibles clicking. Containment seals for plants. A group of Vorac dockworkers had gathered near the vault entrance, their biolights flickering with amusement. One of them called out, "Maybe the human's afraid his flowers will wilt." Laughter echoed through the vault. Vance kept his voice low. "You think we'd mark something harmless as restricted?" Drake grabbed the crate with two of his hands, hefting it effortlessly. "I've seen human agricultural samples before. Seeds, soil, pathetic." He dropped it onto a storage shelf with a metallic clang. The crate's hum intensified. Vance's jaw tightened. "Those seals have 12 hours left. Maybe less, the way you're handling it." Krelix leaned in, his chitinous face inches from Vance's. "Let me explain something. Human, the Galactic Trade Commission has standards. We don't allow invasive species, we don't allow uncontrolled biotics, and we certainly don't take warnings from backwater primates." Vance exhaled slowly. "You ever wonder why Earth has quarantine protocols stricter than yours?" Vexis slithered forward, her biolights pulsing red. "Enough. The human ship is impounded. His cargo is seized. The matter is closed." Drake shoved Vance toward the exit. "You'll be detained until your species pays the fine, assuming anyone cares enough to bail you out." The dockworkers parted as security marched Vance through their midst. Whispers followed him. "Waste of space. Typical human arrogance." Shuld jettisoned him with the cargo. At the vault door, Vance turned one last time. The crate sat motionless on its shelf. The hum was almost imperceptible now, buried under the noise of the station. Krelix smirked. "Something else to say, human?" Vance met his gaze. "Yeah, you should have listened." Drake's fist connected with Vance's ribs, driving the air from his lungs. "Move." As they dragged him away, the crate's locking mechanism emitted a soft, rhythmic click. None of them heard it. The customs hub fell into its nightly rhythm, the bustle of daytime inspections replaced by the hum of dormant machinery. Krelix leaned back in his monitoring station, mandibles clicking in boredom as he reviewed the day's confiscation logs. The human's crate sat in Vault Fay, tagged and forgotten, like all the other biological contraband. Vexis drifted through the security checkpoint, her biolights pulsing a lazy blue, still obsessing over the soft skin's cargo. She teased, running a clawed hand along the vault's reinforced door. Krelix snorted. "Just ensuring their filth stays contained. You saw how desperate that human was, probably smuggling narcotics." A faint click echoed from the vault. Both Zapirians froze. Vexis's lights flickered yellow. "Did you hear?" Another click. Then a hiss, like pressurized air escaping. Krelix rose, chitinous plates rattling. "Impossible. That vault is environmentally sealed." The hiss grew louder. Not mechanical, organic. Vexis backed toward the alarm panel. "Run a scan." Krelix's claws danced over the console. The readout flashed green. Nothing, no heat signatures, no movement. The vault door groaned. Not the door, something behind it. A sound like twisting metal filled the corridor as hairline fractures spiderwebbed across the vault's surface. Krelix's translator stuttered as he whispered, That is reinforced durasteel." The crack spread. Something pushed against them from inside. Vexis slammed the alarm. Klaxons wailed as emergency lights bathed the hallway in crimson. Containment breach in sector. The vault exploded outward. Not an explosion, an eruption. Thick green shoots burst through the shattered door, unfurling with terrifying speed. Krelix barely dodged as a spear, like stalk, impaled his console. The air filled with the scent of wet earth and something sharper, something alive. Vexis fired her plasma cutter. The beam sliced through a stalk, and two more sprouted from the wound. What in the void? Krelix stumbled back as the growth accelerated. Bamboo, the human manifest had called it. But this wasn't some decorative plant. This was a green tsunami, stalks thickening to the width of his torso in seconds, leaves unfolding like grasping hands. A security drone swooped in, its lasers searing the advancing wall of vegetation. The bamboo blackened, then doubled its growth rate, tendrils whipping out to ensnare the drone. Krelix watched in horror as the machine was crushed like a tin can. Seal the sector. Vexis screamed into her comm too late. The growth punched through ceiling panels, sending debris raining down. Krelix felt something brush his carapace. A tendril, probing, he slashed at it with his claws, only for 3 more to coil around his limbs. "Incinerators?" he roared. "Activate the..." The words died as the bamboo lifted him off his feet. Not aggressively, almost gently, like he weighed nothing. Through the thickening green haze, Krelix saw the crate, shattered, its contents now a writhing mass of roots and shoots, and at its center, pulsing like a heartbeat, the original bamboo stalk thicker than a human's body, growing visibly. Vexis's biolight strobed panic, purple as she hacked at the vines encircling her. "It is adapting. Our weapons make it stronger." A new sound joined the chaos, a deep, resonant creaking as the station's superstructure groaned under the pressure. Krelix's mandibles clicked in realization. It is not just growing, it is rebuilding. The bamboo was reshaping the station. Walls became lattices, conduits became vines. The very metal of the customs hub groaned as the plant matter integrated with it, forming some grotesque hybrid of technology and biology. Somewhere beneath the chaos, the station's AI stuttered, warning structural integrity compromised. Krelix finally understood Vance's warning. This wasn't contraband. This was a territorial claim. The alarms hit first, a piercing wail that shattered the quiet hum of the station's night cycle. Vexis biolights flared crimson as she spun toward the vault monitors. The feed showed nothing but static. Then the walls groaned. Krelix crackled. "Inspector, we've got stars above structural breaches in Sector Fey," a guard's voice ragged with panic. "Seal it," Krelix barked, his chitinous plates rattling as he sprinted down the corridor. Vexis followed, her slender Vorac frame slipping through the chaos of scrambling customs officers. The air smelled wrong, thick, green, alive. They rounded the corner just in time to see the vault door bend. Metal screamed as something forced its way through the seams. Not claws, not tools, vines. Thick, fibrous tendrils punched through reinforced alloy like it was wet paper. They unfurled with a sound like snapping bones, lashing outward. A drone hovering too close was snatched mid, air crushed into sparking debris. Containment protocols. Vexis yelled, slamming her palm on a wall panel. Emergency bulkheads shuddered, then jammed halfway, twisted apart by the green surge. Krelix grabbed a pulse rifle from a stunned guard. "Burn it!" The first plasma burst hit the mass of writhing stems. For a heartbeat, it worked. The vines blackened, recoiling. Then the scent of charred vegetation filled the corridor. The bamboo exploded. New shoots erupted from the scorched remains. Thicker, faster, their growth visible to the naked eye. They split the deck plating, curled around support beams, and punched through the ceiling. Sprinklers activated, dousing the hallway in water. Big mistake. The bamboo loved water. Vexis backpedaled as the floor buckled beneath her. It's feeding on the systems." Overhead, the station AI's voice turned shrill. "Alert. Biological mass exceeding safety thresholds. Structural integrity compromised in sectors fate through Fey." Krelix fired again. This time, the vines didn't just regrow. They learned. A tendril lashed out, wrapping around the rifle's barrel and yanking it from his grip. Another guard screamed as bamboo speared through his foot, pinning him to the floor. "Fall back," Krelix roared, dragging the injured guard with him. The corridor behind them was already gone, swallowed by a creeping jungle. Control panels shorted out in showers of sparks as roots infiltrated conduits. Vexis reached a comms terminal, her fingers flying over the interface. All units, quarantine breach is not contained, requesting immediate. The screen flickered. Then, to her horror, text scrolled across it. Not in galactic standard, but in human script. Biological sterilization protocols engaged. A new sound joined the chaos. The hiss of pressurized canisters detonating in distant corridors. Vex's nostrils flared. They're flooding the vents with herbicide. Krelik's mandibles clicked furiously. That'll stop it. It didn't. The bamboo reacted like a living thing under attack. Vines thickened into armored trunks. Leaves broadened, overlapping like scales. And then movement. Deep in the green tangle, something pulsed. The vines weren't just growing, they were coordinating. A security team rounded the far corner, flamethrowers roaring. For 3 glorious seconds, fire held the advance at bay. Then the bamboo adapted. Tendrils split at the tips, fanning out into porous sponge, like filters that absorbed the flames. Others secreted a thick, frothy sap that smothered the fire on contact. One of the guards stumbled back. It's thinking. Krelik's comm buzzed. The voice on the other end was Captain Vance, calm as deep space. Inspector, you seeing now why we packaged it? You knew this would happen, Krelik snarled. Vance's chuckle was the last thing he heard before the ceiling collapsed, burying the corridor in an avalanche of green. The station AI's final warning echoed through the chaos. Catastrophic biomass detected. Evacuate immediately. Somewhere, in the heart of the overrun vault, the original crate's label fluttered to the ground. The words were still legible under the pollen and sap. Terraforming sample Phae caution, extremophile species. And below that, in smaller print, warning, do not water. The station's alarms wailed like dying beasts, their shrill cries drowned out by the relentless crack and groan of structural supports giving way. Vance stood in the middle of the chaos, arms crossed, watching the carnage unfold on the flickering security feed. The bamboo had spread faster than even Head anticipated. Thick, fibrous stalks punching through bulkheads, splitting durasteel like wet paper. The air was thick with pollen, golden motes swirling in the artificial light. A pair of panicked Vorac guards stumbled into the detention block, their bioluminescent stripes flashing erratic red. One of them fumbled with the control panel, his claws slipping on the keys. The cell door hissed open. Get up, human, the guard barked, his voice trembling. Command wants you now. Vance didn't hurry, he stretched, rolling his shoulders as if Head just woken from a nap. Took you long enough. The guards didn't answer. They just shoved him forward, their eyes darting to the ceiling, where tendrils of green had begun creeping through the vents. The hallway was a war zone. Zapirian enforcers fired plasma cutters at the encroaching growth, only for the severed stalks to sprout new shoots within seconds. A group of Arcturians had resorted to brute force, their massive fists crushing bamboo stalks. But for everyone they destroyed, 3 more burst through the deck plating. Vance smirked. The command center was in shambles. Screens flickered with damage reports, half of them obscured by vines. Krelik stood at the center of the room, his chitinous plates flecked with pollen, mandibles twitching in fury. When he saw Vance, he lunged forward, claws extended. You knew, Krelik snarled. This was sabotage. Vance didn't flinch. He just tilted his head toward the nearest viewport, where the station's outer hull was visibly buckling under the weight of the growth. I told you not to open that crate. A hulking figure stepped forward. Commander Drolk of the Galactic Defense Force, his armored plating scarred from some unseen struggle. His voice was a deep, grating growl. Explain now, Vance shrugged. You banned Earth flora, never asked why. Drolk's fists clenched. What is this? Terraforming sample, Vance said, as if it were obvious. Bamboo, modified for rapid growth in non-native environments. We use it to stabilize atmospheres, break down toxic soil, turn dead rocks into livable space in months instead of decades. He gestured to the destruction around them. Course, it's a bit enthusiastic without proper containment protocols. Krellick's antennae twitched. You're saying this weed is a tool, Vance grinned, and you just declared it contraband. The station shuddered violently. A support beam snapped somewhere deep in the superstructure, the sound echoing like a gunshot. One of the junior officers yelped as a fresh stalk punched through the floor between his feet. Drork rounded on Krellick's. You confiscated terraforming gear, Krellick's bristled. It was unregistered. Human biological materials are restricted, and now they're everywhere, Vance interrupted. He walked to the main console, brushing pollen off the screen. You've got about 20 minutes before the roots compromise the reactor shielding. After that, well, let's just say this station's gonna look real pretty from a distance. Silence then. The GDF commander turned to his comms officer. Open a channel to Earth Command. Priority override. Vance crossed his arms. Too late for that. Only thing that'll stop this now is the inhibitor compound. And guess where that is? Krellick's mandibles clicked in dawning horror. Back on my ship, Vance finished. Which you impounded. Drork swore, a guttural, alien curse. Then he grabbed Vance by the shoulder, shoving him toward the door. Move. The halls were worse now. The bamboo had formed a latticework across the ceiling, its stalks pulsing with unnatural vitality. A group of trapped dock workers had been forced onto a maintenance platform, the floor around them swallowed by the growth. One of them, a slender Vorac with singed biolights, locked eyes with Vance as he passed. You did this, Vexis hissed. Vance didn't stop. No, you did. The hangar bay was a lost cause. The Marauder sat where they'd left it, its hull now half buried under a living, breathing thicket. Drork barked orders, and a team of engineers rushed forward with plasma torches, carving a path to the airlock. Vance keyed in his access code. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the ship was untouched, a pristine island in the middle of the chaos. Vance moved straight to the storage locker, pulling out a canister of thick silver liquid. He tossed it to Drork. Spray it on the roots. It'll neutralize the growth enzymes. Drork hesitated. This is all of it? Vance smirked. For now. The commander's eyes narrowed. What do you want? Simple, Vance said. You lift the ban on Earth flora. No more confiscations, no more fines. He nodded toward the station's crumbling spine. And maybe next time, you'll ask before you declare our tools contraband. Drork's jaw tightened. Then he turned, barking orders into his comm. Vance leaned against the bulkhead, watching as the first drops of inhibitor hit the bamboo. The stalks recoiled, their vibrant green fading to a dull brown. Somewhere in the distance, the station groaned, but it would hold for now. The station's central command hub was in chaos. Council members from a dozen species flickered on holographic screens, their faces a mix of horror and disbelief. The once pristine customs hub now resembled a wild earth jungle, its corridors choked with bamboo stalks thicker than a Zapirian's armored torso. Vines coiled around disabled security drones, their thruster pods crushed under the relentless growth. Pollen drifted through the air like golden mist, settling on every surface, including a thoroughly humiliated Krellick's, whose chitinous plating was now dusted yellow. Captain Elias Vance stepped through the wreckage, his boots crunching over shattered containment glass. The Galactic Defense Force commander, a broad-shouldered Tarkalan with quivering facial spines, blocked his path. You knew, the commander snarled, his voice barely audible over the creaking of bending metal. This wasn't contraband, it was a weapon. Vance didn't flinch. He reached out, plucking a fresh bamboo shoot sprouting from a control panel. It snapped free with a wet pop. Weapon. He turned the shoot in his fingers, showing the fibrous green stem. This is food, construction material, medicine. He tossed it to the commander, who fumbled the catch. You banned Earth flora without ever asking why we grow it. A screen flickered. Counselor Draxis of the Vorac Unity, her bioluminescent stripes pulsing erratically. This is an act of ecological terrorism. Her voice crackled with static as vines slithered across the transmission array. Vance laughed. Terrorism. You seized a crate of bamboo shoots. We told you they were agricultural samples. He gestured to the jungle swallowing the station. This is what happens when you lock Earth's plants in a dark box and ignore them for 8 hours. Krellick staggered forward, claws scraping against the warped floor. You tricked us. No, Vance said, his voice dropping. You tricked yourselves. You assumed our biology was weak, controllable. He kicked aside a shattered drone, revealing a bamboo stalk already punching through its alloy casing. You thought banning our filth would keep us in line. A low groan echoed through the station as another bulkhead buckled. Somewhere, an emergency containment field failed with a whump, and a fresh wave of greenery surged into the corridor. Dock workers, Zapirian, Vorac, even a few hulking Arcturians, scrambled back. Their earlier sneers replaced by panic. Vexis, her biolights dimmed with exhaustion, gripped a scorched plasma cutter. Shed tried burning the bamboo earlier, only to watch the stalks thrive in the heat. Now she stared at Vance like head-grown fangs. How do we stop it? Vance reached into his pocket. The GDF commander tensed, but all Vance produced was a small injector vial. This, he said, holding it up to the light, is a tailored inhibitor. 1 dose per square meter halts growth for Fey hours. He paused. Of course, it's also classified as a biological agent under galactic trade law. The council screens erupted in overlapping shouts. Draxis' stripes flashed crimson. You wouldn't dare. Vance thumbed the vial's safety cap. Our ship, our cargo, our fine reimbursed, or I let the station become a forest. Silence. Even the bamboo seemed to pause, as if listening. Krellick's mandibles clicked weakly. You planned this. Vance didn't smile. We adapt. He turned to the screens, addressing the entire Galactic Council. You called our plants contraband. Now you see why we cultivate them. The commander lunged for the vial, then froze as a bamboo stalk twitched toward his leg. Vance didn't move. Careful, they're territorial. One by one, the council screens winked out in surrender. By dawn, the UESN Marauder was cleared for departure. Its cargo hold restocked, plus a few extra crates donated by the chastened customs office. As the ship's engines hummed to life, Vance watched the station shrink on the view screen. Half of it was still green. Over the comms, a Zapirian voice crackled. Krellick's defeated. Why bamboo? Vance leaned back in his chair. Because it's polite, a beat. Wait till you see Kudzu. The galaxy would learn. Humanity didn't smuggle weapons. They smuggled ecosystems.